Good morning.
Well, hello there and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Casey and I'm the designer behind the indie sewing pattern company, Pattern Scout. Today I'm going to be showing you how to draft a skirt sloper. So a sloper is just a very basic garment that is drafted to your exact measurements, and it's kind of a technical garment, so you can use it to build other patterns. And this is actually a very easy drafting project. You don't need any previous drafting experience to do this. So the first part of this video, I'm going to show you how to draft the sloper, and then in the second part of the video, I will show you how I create a very cute column skirt with a button front out of this pattern. I also wanted to take a moment to say thank you, because about a week ago, Pattern Scout's YouTube channel hit 10,000 subscribers, which is actually pretty far beyond where I thought I would be at this point with this channel. If you've been here for a while and you've been following along, or if you are completely new here and you've only seen a couple of my videos, thank you for subscribing. It really means a lot to me, and I'm very excited to continue bringing you lots of great stuff. So let's just get into this sewing tutorial. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do is actually get my hip measurement and then the distance from my waist to the hip measurement, basically the widest point of my hips. But the reason that I go widest is because that's going to be the widest that my skirt is going to be. So I'm going to measure that now. You'll just need a tape measure. I've got that here. And let me tie this shirt out of the way. And I've got on some pretty close fitting, like these are kind of some legging joggers that I've got. And I actually did measure myself without pants on just to see, but just for the purpose of demonstration, I'll show you with my pants on. I'll spare you. Try to stand as naturally as possible. Put the tape measure around. It's about 43.5, but I'll take a little bit off just because I am wearing pants. I'll take about a ½ inch off. But I want to make sure I get that at the widest point where my hips and my butt are, and that's kind of parallel. And I also want to make sure that I'm not pulling it so that I'm getting indentation back here. So yeah, mine's about 43 inches for that measurement. And then for my hip to waist measurement, this is a vertical measurement. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this tape measure back on this point here for my widest part. Kind of get that where I want it comfortably. And I'm going to grab a pin. And I'm just going to put a pin in my pants. Be very careful when you do this. At the level where this is. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just going to kind of mark with my thumb at this point. And I'm going to put a little pin right there. Careful not to poke myself. Then I'm going to measure from the place where I want my waist to fall on this skirt down to this pin to kind of get that distance between the waist to the hip. I'm going to go right about the top of my belly button here. That's usually where I like my pants to fall. It's about 8.5 inches. So I want to make a note of that. For this project I have two fabric options. This is a kind of navy blue, I think it's a lyocell twill or maybe a tinsel twill, and it's just very drapey and kind of lightweight. And then I also have some heavier weight linen that I also picked up at Joann, and this has a little bit more texture to it, actually a lot more texture, and it's just kind of a nice natural oatmeal color. The only thing with this is I'm kind of limited on the amount that I have, and because of that I think I'm going to make a muslin first. And I actually have some muslin fabric over here, just like some basic kind of cotton fabric that I can practice with, and I can actually make a pattern out of this and just kind of keep it and use it over and over again once I get the skirt completed. So that's the plan for the fabric.
To get my skirt dimensions, I'm using my total hip circumference, which is 43 inches, and I'm adding 3 inches of ease. I also need to add seam allowance. So I'll add 5/8 inch seam allowance to each side seam on both the front and the back, and all of those added together gives me a total seam allowance of 2.5 inches that I'll add to the total circumference. This gives me 48.5 inches. I'm just going to round up to 49 inches. Then I'll divide that number in two and cut 2 rectangles that are 24.5 inches wide by 36 inches long. And I'll cut the front skirt piece in half so that I have a center front opening.
Okay, so I have sewn the side seams of the skirt and I've just pinned it on in the front. So it's gonna have a front placket with buttons when I'm finished with it. So I went ahead and just tried it on, but I just wanna pull this up to about my waist. I've got it pinned here, kind of an inch overlap in the center front. And you can see the back is just, it's basically like a pillowcase at this point. And then I'm just gonna kind of walk my fingers in toward the waist until I get it to a point where it feels comfortable, not too tight. You can see the back is going to need some adjustment, which we'll do with darts. But I don't want it so tight that it's like pulling apart at the pins here. So I kind of want to just make it comfortable, because even if it's a little bit loose, I can always take up the side seam a little bit more. Right now I'm just trying to get the basic shape. And I'm going to put a pin. The same for this side. So I'll just continue kind of pinning down the side seam here to follow the natural shape of my hips. And I'm putting my pins in vertically this way along where the seam would be. And it doesn't really matter if it's perfect or kind of crooked. We'll do some adjustments to this later. Okay, so the next thing that I want to do is actually start to take in for the darts. Now, I don't think I'm going to do any darts on the front, and this is going to vary person to person. So if you do have a little bit more curvature at the belly, you may want to consider doing some darts here to make it fit a little bit better, or you can try to just let it lay flat as possible. But for the back, I definitely need to do darts. You can see here it's a little bit kind of pooching out a little bit. So what I'm just gonna do is I'll eventually put 2 darts back here, but for now I just wanna squeeze that in with just 1 dart to meet up with my waist. Let me pull this back up because it's kind of slipping down. And I'll just pin that in place right there in the center back. And again, not perfect. We'll fix all this later. So I'm just gonna unpin the front just so that I can get this off, and then I will take this over to the sewing table and start making some adjustments to make this a little bit more nicely drafted. So I've got the skirt laid here face up. Here's the front opening. You can see here where I pinned the sides, and you can see that it's starting to take some shape too. So same thing over here. And all I want to do now is just measure these distances, and then I will basically create an average of the two and clean these up so that they're the same on both sides. And actually I could just do this on one side since I'm making a pattern, but for the sake of fitting, I'm gonna do it on both sides. And then for the back, I actually just want to measure the depth of this dart, and I'm going to divide it in 2 and put the darts on either side of the center back. So here I've just made myself a little sketch of the skirt. The 2 sides together were 6.5 inches, so I'll divide that by 2 and bring in the side here on the waist. What is that, 3¼ inch on both sides. And then the taper kind of ends about 1 inch below the waist, the hip line here. So I'll incorporate that. So now you can see I've got the side seam drafted. I've got 2 darts on the back, other side seam, and then on the front, I'm not doing any darts, and I've just got the side seam drafted here. also marked on these pieces the amount of overlap when I had this pinned in the front, and it was about 3 inches, so I'll take half of that to find the center front of the skirt. So I've got this folded in half. This is the center back, this is the center front, this is the side seam, and I'm just going to true a line from the center front that kind of curves across the side seam and up to the center back, just to make that a little bit smoother transition, because right now I've kind of got these angled pieces and you want that to be a little bit more curved. So now we have the basic skirt sloper drafted, and this is going to be a pattern that you can use for so many different things to create all kinds of different skirt styles. But this is the front here. I've taken the front apart, so this is one side of the front, and then this is the back. I've just folded this in half, and I went ahead and cut out the dart on this. And I'm actually just going to trace these onto trace paper so that they are on a more stable substrate. That way they don't stretch out when I'm trying to use these, because I would like to use these over and over again. So I'm going to do that now. So I have my 2 skirt pieces cut out here. I cut the back on the fold. I think I'm going to do a fold over placket instead of a separate placket that I attach to the center front. The reason I want to do that is because this linen is a little bit thicker, and I don't want the placket to be too bulky. So that's kind of my thought for that. So I may kind of just like baste these pieces together to make sure that that will work with the placket just folded under on the front there. So I have both of my front skirt pieces cut out. I went ahead and serged the edges of all the pattern pieces. Interface this is just a 2-inch wide strip of interfacing along both of the skirt front pieces. And this is the selvage edge here, so I'm not going to worry about finishing that. I'm just going to fold it straight over and sew it right along that edge to create the placket. I'm leaving the top 2.5-ish inches unstitched because I will be adding a facing to the top waist of the skirt, and I want to be able to conceal that underneath this placket. So I'm just going to leave that unstitched, and I'll finish that later. Before I sew the skirt pieces together, I just wanted to create a facing for the waistband. And to do this, I've just created a 2.5-inch band along the top of the back skirt and the front skirt, and that includes seam allowance. And I just traced that onto some new trace paper. So I've got that piece there for that side of the dart, that piece there for that side of the dart, and then I joined those pieces to create the full back facing so that when the dart is closed, that facing will be the same width as the waistline. And then the front will be separate, and it's just one piece. So I will cut these out and interface those and then attach those to the top of the skirt, both the front and the back, before I connect those. I'll also understitch the facing to the seam allowance and make sure that that seam allowance is pressed toward the facing, and that will just kind of help keep the facing turned toward the interior of the garment once I get everything attached. I've got the skirt pieces right sides together here. I've pinned along both of the side seams, and I've made sure to keep those facings pressed up and pin those together as well. And then I'm going to stop my stitching about 13 inches from the bottom because I want to put a side slit here. So I'm just going to stitch down to about right here, and I'll do that for both sides.
Now I just want to finish off the top of the placket here, so I've got my facing tucked under. I folded down the top where the placket meets the waistband, and I've just got that folded over the facing, and I'll stitch along here. And I'm also just going to stitch right along the top here, just so that that's not a little gap in there. And here's what that looks like from the front. I just need to trim my little threads here, and that's nicely finished. Eventually I will be tacking this facing down at the seams. I'll be doing some stitch in the ditch just to hold this in place so it doesn't fly open. But I don't want to do that until I get the buttons and the buttonholes attached to the front placket, because I still want to be able to fit this. So I've marked out locations with pins for where I'm going to place the buttonholes. I'm doing mine 3 inches apart. I think that'll be a pretty good spacing that will keep the skirt from gaping open, and I might actually go in and add a little hook and eye on these first 2 on the underside just to give it a little extra stability. For now, I'm just going to do the buttonholes first. I'll mark those with pins, and then I'll come back and place all of the buttons. So I've got the skirt almost finished. I'm actually very excited about how this is turning out. I love the size of the buttons that I chose. I think the spacing is really good. The only thing is it's a little loose in the waist, which I kind of knew. I've been trying this on as I've been making it. So I'm just going to go in and take in the waist. Basically, I will pull out the facing and then take in the waist. Obviously this will be turned wrong side out, but I'm just going to kind of pinch this and kind of feel how much I want to take out on each side. I'll probably end up taking another 1/2 inch out on each side, and just tapering that back down to the hip here. And then after that, all I have left to do is to hem the slit and the bottom and kind of decide on a length for this, but I'm extremely happy with this. This is basically exactly how I wanted it to look. And yeah. So I've adjusted the side seams and the side seam at the facings. I've just pressed and folded those back down and aligned the seams, and I also align this back facing, and I've just pinned it from the right side at the seams, both side seams, and at both darts. And now I'm just going to stitch in the ditch to adhere the facing to the skirt so that it doesn't flop out of place. The last thing that I need to do is I want to hem the slits. I've already got this pressed under here, and I've just serged the edge of that to neaten the edge and kind of reduce the bulk there, so I'm not turning it twice, I'm just turning it once. I'll stitch, top stitch along both of these sides here of the slit. Then I'm also going to serge along the bottom edge here and then turn that under once. I'll probably do about 1 inch hem down there and top stitch that in place as well. Now, I mentioned at the top of this video that we recently hit 10,000 subscribers here on the channel, which I'm so grateful for. Thank you very much for being here and following along and watching my videos. And I have so many ideas for more wholesome sewing content for you guys. And I want to also thank you for all of the comments that you guys have left me, letting me know what you want to see from this channel. It really does help me out a lot. And yeah, I've got
lots of stuff planned for the next several months. A lot of that is from comments that you guys have left me letting me know what you want to see. Also, the last couple of weeks I've been posting on Sundays, which feels like a really good day for me to post. So I'm going to continue doing that, and moving forward, my new schedule for posting is going to be 3 weeks on, 1 week off. So I'll post 3 Sundays in a row and then take a Sunday off. That'll just give me some time to kind of recuperate from video editing, plan for the next month, and hopefully help me avoid burnout, because editing videos, it takes a little time, but I'm getting better at it. I'm getting a little quicker, and I'm learning new things every time I do this. And I'm also kind of experimenting with my editing style. So if you notice things are a little bit different from video to video, I'm just trying new things and seeing what works. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more from me, please be sure to subscribe and hit that little bell icon. That way you'll be notified when I release new videos in the future. So anyhow, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I think that is all I have for you today. I will see you in the next video. Bye.